On episode 174 of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, I discuss 11 things you should know about macros. You can find the full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/174. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness Podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. Before we get started today, I wanted to take a moment and thank you for being a part of this podcast. I really appreciate the time that you give me each episode to listen to what's going on, to listen to the interviews that I do. And again, I really just do appreciate you being a part of this whole thing as we grow and as we go, because being healthy and fit is something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to share this with you. But I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Would you take just a moment to go to your podcast catcher, whichever one you're using, whether it's on the iPhone or Google Android phone, but go on there and rate and review the podcast, because by doing that, other people see that you're getting value from this podcast, and they'll be much more likely to download and listen to episodes, and that's going to help more people, and that's what I'm really in this game to do. So beyond sharing this with friends and family, please do take just a minute to give us a rating and review. I do listen and read to all those reviews, so I am interested in knowing what you think about the podcast and anything I can do to make it better, or anything that I'm doing very, very well that you want me to do more of. Please put it out there. Thank you. So a week or so ago, I reached out to the Facebook group to ask for topic ideas that you would be interested in learning about, and one of the members of the group said she was interested in learning more about macros. So I thought I would do an episode specifically on macros. We've talked about macros in the past, but every once in a while, it's just kind of good to go back and really kind of pull that all back together and talk about it again. So I'm really glad that this topic was brought up. If you want to be a part of the conversation, give me some ideas, you can join the Facebook group. Just go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/group, and you can join us as a closed group. We try to keep it kind of private as far as the conversations we're able to have there, so we can be frank with each other, have fun, and encourage each other. So this is a no butthole zone. We want everybody to get along. But if you are that kind of person, if you are a pretty cool person and want to interact on Facebook and have some very encouraging people around you, I encourage you to go to the group. Again, that's 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/group, and that link will take you directly to the Facebook group where you can request to join. So let's get into macros. First macro that I want to talk about is a pretty important one, because it is essential that we get protein in our diet. So I want to talk about protein first. And the first thing that I want to talk about when we talk about protein is that more is not better. Just because something is good for you and you need it, it doesn't mean getting excess of it is any better. The way I like to think about protein is basically this. Protein is a building block for our bodies, particularly our muscles, but most of our body is comprised of basically water, fat, and proteins. So, you need to take in some proteins over time to make sure that your body is getting what it needs to build. But just like if you were building a wall and you were bringing in more bricks than you needed to build that wall, you're going to end up with excess bricks. And the problem is, when our body ends up with excess protein, it doesn't have any way of storing that protein. There's nothing else for it to physically build with the protein. It can't get rid of it. It has to do something with it. And what it does is it basically turns it into blood sugar, glucose. So it's not that you ate sugar. It's now that your body is creating sugar from the proteins, the excess proteins that you're eating. And that's going to then cause you to store that as fat. Additionally, your kidneys are responsible for helping you deal with the protein that you eat. And if you're taking in excessive amounts of protein, it is possible for you to damage your kidneys. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about with proteins, and the reason that proteins are extremely important is they're made up of amino acids. And amino acids are basically just these molecules that are configured slightly differently, but all of them are essential to being built as a part of our body. And there are some proteins, some amino acids that our body can create for itself, and there are some that we have to get from our food. So the ones that we have to get from our food are the essential amino acids. So you'll often see this if you go out to the supplement store and you start looking around for amino acids, you'll see the ones that are listed as essential amino acids. And I'm not going to list them here, but they're just to know that your body cannot make these, and it's going to need them. So it's essential for you, for good health, to make sure that you're getting good quality and a good mix of these proteins. And so just sticking to one kind of food or another is typically not good for you. And if you choose to go to a vegetarian style of eating, recognize that yes, you can get your proteins from these foods, but you're going to have to pretty much mix them up to make sure that you're getting the right mixes to get what we would call a complete protein. And a complete protein is going to have all of those essential amino acids that you need. So, if you're trying something different with your eating programs, just make sure, again, you're not getting too much protein, but that you are getting enough protein so that you're getting those essential amino acids. And that's just a balance that you have to strike for yourself as you go along. And the third one I kind of already got into that, is the complete proteins. If you're going to eat a vegetarian diet, then you really do have to pay attention to the way you're mixing and matching your food to make sure that your body's getting all that it needs. There are proteins in all the different vegetables and whatnot, or in most of the vegetables anyway, but you got to pair them up appropriately to make sure that you're getting what you need. And if you just eat one or two different types of foods, you're going to find it hard to get complete protein. And over time, missing those essential amino acids is going to cause you some problems. The second one I want to talk about is fats. And particularly, I'm actually a big fan of fat. I had a listener that messaged me the other day and, basically said, why are you so down on fat? And I don't think that I was. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that, in fact, I am pro-fat. I think that you need good, healthy fats in your diet. So, the next few that I want to talk about relate to fats, okay? And the first thing is to realize that there are different types of fats. And unfortunately, we have all been told to demonize saturated fat, that we should not be eating saturated fat. And the reality is that's the animal fats, that's those type of fats. We need some of that. Our body is made up of saturated fat. And if we start burning body fat, that's exactly the body fat. That's what we're burning. We're burning saturated fat from our body. So when someone says don't eat saturated fat, it's like, well, then if I lose weight, isn't that burning saturated fat? And the answer is yes. So there's monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and saturated fats. And so knowing what you're getting when you're eating the fats is very important. Some saturated fats are better than others, and I'll get into that in a minute. But just knowing the amount of fat and knowing how that fat's going to affect your body is kind of important as you go through this. So, don't eat one type of food, mix it up, and you can get some types of unsaturated fats in many foods, and you can get saturated fats from many foods. And so, again, paying a little bit of attention to that one's been beat to death. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that one. But the one I do want to get into, and the reason I think that there's a big problem potentially with, when people talk about the big problem with saturated fat, is I think they're talking about the wrong thing. And what I think they mean is, there's omega-3 fats and there's omega-6 fats. And in the past, what we would eat would be a larger percentage, probably almost a 1-to-1 percentage, ratio of the omega-3s to the omega-6s. And so a grass-fed cow that's left to its own devices to eat in the grass and eat what it wants is basically going to give you that 1-to-1 mix. Now, when they start feeding grains to the cows, because it fattens them up faster, it makes them bigger, it makes them more valuable. When they start doing that and not letting the animals roam, a strange thing happens to those cows. The fat in the cows now becomes predominantly omega-6. So the way that we're currently raising a lot of our food, we end up with much more of the omega-6 and a lot less of the omega-3 in a ratio comparison. And as a result, I think that's why there's a problem with some saturated fat. It's not that it's the saturated fat, it's that whether it's omega-3 or omega-6 and the ratio of those fats. And so you'll hear, take fish oil, take krill oil. Those are omega-3 oils. And that's why I'm a strong component of doing that, because those oils help kind of balance out. And if you're not eating a lot of fish, which I do eat quite a bit of fish, stay away from the stay away from the cows that you just normally, that are basically bred for food, and stick to the grass-fed cows. And when you look at grass-fed, be thinking in terms of not just grass-fed up to a point, because they can still sell it as grass-fed, and then they finish it off with corn. So again, the last little bit of time, they're eating the corn, they're putting on a lot more of that omega-6 fat. So again, not the healthiest thing in the world. So be watching kind of where you're getting your food from, and put more fish in your diet. I want to talk a little bit about the next one I want to talk about is MCT oil. And you're probably hearing a lot about this lately. It's related to coconut oil. It's actually an extract, typically made as an extract of coconut oil. And what MCT is basically medium chain triglycerides. And what that effectively means is it's a type of fat that your body can't store. It can't, it can't use it to make part of the body. It has to use it for energy. So it goes straight into the liver and starts being used for energy, which is good on many fronts if you need that kind of energy. If you're already eating a lot of sugar, then you don't need that excess energy. So probably not something that you want to bother with too much. But if you're trying to restrict your calories, trying to lose some weight, trying to maybe even get into ketosis, MCT oil is a way to kind of help you get to that point. Because what's going to happen is when you take in the MCT oil, your body's immediately going to start using it for energy. Since you're going to have that energy, you're going to feel capable of moving and doing the things that you want to do, which is going to help. Plus, if you're, again, trying to push yourself into the low carb, into the ketosis type style of eating, that MCT oil is then going to help you bridge into burning your own body fat for energy. It's going to turn you more, it's going to help you get into fat burning mode. And so when you hear about MCT oils, just realize that that's an eating strategy in a way. And you've probably heard of the Bulletproof Coffee from Dave Asprey. And what he basically does is he puts MCT oil, he puts butter, which is another saturated fat, into his coffee, and he drinks that. And what that does for him is it gives him the saturated fat, it gives him this MCT oil, which is used for forming ketones and used as an energy source in the body. So it kind of gives him a double boost on what he's getting from his caffeine in the morning, because it's all working together synergetically to help him make it till 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon before he really feels like he needs another meal. The next thing I want to talk about with regards to fat is that there are bad fats and oils out there. And so when you hear the term partially hydrogenated oils, those are evil. Those are probably the worst thing that you could ever put in your body. And the reason I say that is that it's a fat that your body can't actually do anything with. So it's a complete waste product for you. They use it in margarine, they use it in some other foods, but the aspects of it is to give something a long shelf life. So a lot of foods that are sitting on the shelf have this stuff in it. And what it does, they use it to replace normal fats, because normal fats go rancid. Normal oils go rancid. And we'll talk about rancid in just a second, but just realize that these partially hydrogenated oils don't. They're shelf stable, but they're also shelf stable in your body. I mean, they're not going anywhere. They're going to stay in your body forever. You're not going to be able to get rid of these. So you keep eating these, you just keep adding a load to your body and really bad stuff. Now, the food companies more and more are taking this stuff out because they're recognizing it as a dangerous substance, but there's still some of it creeping into your food. So it's worth looking at the labels and just realize it may say none, may say 0, but that just means it has less than 0.5, less than 1/2 of a gram. So you might still be getting some and just not know it. So again, you're not going to have that problem if you're eating whole foods. They're just straight out. You're not going to deal with that because it's not shelf stable. You put an apple on the counter, and 3 days later, it's no good. You put a piece of steak on the counter, and 3 days later, it's no good. And the reason is they go bad. And so whole food goes bad. Shelf-stable food sits, and it's designed to sit. That's why it does what it does. But it partially because they're using components like this, they're using preservatives, and they're using these types of oils that they've created to do this kind of stuff. And I just can't personally don't believe that can be healthy for us. So sticking to whole foods solves that whole problem. You're getting your oils from whole foods, you're going to be a lot healthier. So when we talk about rancid, because again, yes, real fats go rancid. So if you have a bottle of olive oil, and you put it above heat, so I used to store my olive oil right up above my stove. And I've come to learn that's a horrible, horrible place to put it, because that's probably one of the warmest places in the house when we're cooking. So that oil is being subjected to heat. And healthy oils like olive oil, like your saturated fat that's in your meats, and some other oils, if they're subjected to heat or light, they oxidize, they go rancid. And a rancid oil, another bad one is fish oil. If oil goes rancid, it's not something that you should be putting in your body. It's a toxic load on your body. So you may be taking fish oil capsules thinking that's a healthy thing to do, but if they've gone rancid, it's actually harming you more than it's helping you. So I encourage you, if you're taking a fish oil or you're using any kind of oil, take the time to smell it. It shouldn't smell bad. Make sure you're keeping it in a cool, dark place. So your olive oils and your fish oils and all that, go ahead and put them in the fridge. You'll notice that good olive oils are in these opaque bottles, and you want to keep them in the dark. You want to keep the oxygen out. So I store my fish oil and my olive oil in the refrigerator so it doesn't go rancid. It'll last a little bit longer, but you need to be going through that stuff pretty quickly. Again, you bought it, eat it, get it out of there, and then buy some more. That's going to be your normal cycle so that you're getting the good oils and not allowing them to go rancid. So the final four I want to talk about is I want to get into carbs. And so carbs is a big important topic, but here's the simple truth. Simple carbs and sugar provide your body with more energy than it can use in the short time that it has to use them. When you eat proteins and when you eat fat, it takes a little while for your body to actually digest them. Same thing with some of the more complex carbs, and we'll get into that in a minute. But simple carbs, like flour and rice and those white rice, pretty much anything white, bread and whatnot that are made of those things, and sugar and all the other names for sugar, agave syrup, honey, high fructose corn syrup, all of that stuff. Those sugars and the simple carbs basically provide your body with so much energy so fast, it has to store it as fat. So it causes a surge of insulin. That surge of insulin comes into your body and says, what are we going to do with all this stuff? And it's either going to take it to the liver or it's going to turn, and then the liver is going to turn it to fat. That's typically what's going to happen. And insulin, once it goes, it prevents your body from burning its own fat. So the insulin comes in and says, okay, we don't need any energy, so don't burn any body fat. We're going to be putting some more body fat on the body because we've got these simple carbs. Now, in a normal scenario where you're eating a little bit of them, and then throughout the day working and doing things, you would burn that fat naturally. But unfortunately, we just keep feeding more and more simple carbs. And when we went through the sugar challenge a month or so ago, a lot of people saw some really great results. And the reason that happened was because they were teaching their body that they weren't going to give it that carb time after time, and they were allowing their body to start actually burning fat for energy. And so the cycle kind of fixed itself. Some of that insulin resistance that occurred in the past, that went away. So now they're getting normalization of blood sugar, they're getting normalization of insulin levels, and that allows them to naturally eat less and start losing weight. So avoid the simple simple carbs and sugars. So just eat very little of them, eat them as you need them, and then, work them off. They are an energy source. If you need the energy for a workout, by all means. But if you're going on a long, long run, by all means. But beyond what you need to store in your muscles for energy later, and beyond what you need for the energy level when you just first eat, don't be eating those in excess because they're just going to become body fat. Okay? Now we talk about soluble fiber. What is soluble fiber? Fiber is a part of carbs, so it is a carb, but it's when it's soluble, it's something that can absorb into water, which means as a soluble fiber, it is something that our body can use for energy. And because it's a fiber, it takes our body a little bit longer to digest it. So just like with protein, just like with fat, soluble fiber is something that goes in and it takes our body a little bit longer. So you'll hear this called a slow carb. So like sweet potatoes, great source of this because it's going to take your body a good long time to unwind that carb to break it down into the sugar. So that's going to, because that's slowed down, it avoids that insulin spike. So you're now using that energy over the time that you've now eaten it. You're much less likely to get the insulin spike. You're much less likely to add excess body fat as a result. So the slow carbs, when you need carbs, are the right way to go, and that's going to be with soluble fiber. Now, insoluble fiber does not absorb in water, and our bodies really can't break it down. So when we eat non-soluble fiber, it becomes kind of the stuff that holds everything together as it moves through your digestive tract. And then as the water is kind of pulled out of at the final stages of your digestion, that fiber is going to be there to make sure that you have nice, beautiful poops. And so if you want regularity, it's the non-soluble fiber that's going to help that happen. And you get non-soluble fiber from vegetables. Yep, vegetables. So making sure that you're getting plenty of vegetable matter in your diet, a variety of those. A lot of those vegetables are going to have fiber, the non-soluble fiber, that's going to allow you to then, be very regular and be very comfortable. If you tend to just want to eat a very high fat, high or moderate protein diet and very low carb, you're still going to want to make sure that most of the vegetables that you're getting are coming from non-soluble fiber so that you're going to be regular. Otherwise, you might find that you do have some issues with constipation and just not going as regularly as you'd like to. And then the final thing I want to talk about is this main concept, okay? I told you that there's some essential amino acids in proteins, so your body can't make those, you have to have those. And I've told you that fats are also essential for your body because your body's made up of fats. And so making sure that you're getting good quality fats in your diet, particularly the omega-3 style, so you're getting a good balance of omega-3 to omega-6 is important. And so you do need those. Those are essential. But there is no such thing as an essential carb. Now, the non-soluble fiber can help make you regular, but it's not like your body needs that because it actually never uses it. It passes right through. There's absolutely no reason for you to eat carbs unless you just want to, okay? Now, I'm not going to tell you not to eat vegetables because that's where you're going to get a lot of your minerals and your vitamins. So making sure you're getting a good, diverse diet is extremely important. But again, you don't have to feel like you have to have carbs because they're not essential to you. And that's just a key point that I think a lot of people miss with carbs is they just think that they have to have carbs. And the reality is you have to have the micronutrients that come from some of the carbs that we eat, but you don't have to have the carbs themselves. So, but then again, I'm not pushing you to go buy vitamins and avoid vegetables by any means. Get them from natural whole food. I'm a big fan of whole food. So, again, knowing what you're eating, why you're eating it, what it's doing for you, eating a variety in your diet so you're getting the nutrition that you need is important. But don't feel like you have to have these carbs to subside and keep going. You can go without them if you're eating appropriately otherwise and getting all the nutrition that you need. So let's take it back and go back through the 11 real quick as just a general summary, okay? So the first one, when you're eating protein, try to find that minimum effective dose. Find the amount of protein that you need to get by to do what you're doing. If you're lifting heavy weights, you're probably going to need a little bit more protein. If you're not lifting heavy weights, probably a little less protein. Find that right balance for you with protein where you feel fully recovered from work and you feel satiated with your foods, but don't eat too much protein. At the same time, realize that protein is very important. So number 2 is that there are essential amino acids in your proteins that you do need to eat. So make sure that you're getting those essential amino acids by getting a good mix of proteins in your food. So again, a good mix of essential amino acids. And in fact, eggs probably have the best profile for protein that's out there. So getting a good pastured egg from a pastured chicken is going to give you the best opportunity to get all of the essential amino acids in one little shell. Now, there are complete proteins. So if you're going to go on a vegetarian style diet, realize that you may be missing certain amino acids from the foods that you're eating. So paying attention to how to make choices of your food so that you're getting a complete protein mix is important. So you can't just say, I'm going to eat lettuce and spinach and kale every day. That's great, but you're not going to last very long because you're not getting the essential amino acids that you need. Okay, number 4, we're going to talk about fats, and we talk about saturated fat and the mono and unsaturated and polyunsaturated. Now, saturated fats have been demonized for years, and the reality is they're now finding that they may not be that bad for us. And a good mix of them is probably important for us to maintain good health. It's what we would have eaten in the past, and if you eat whole foods, you're typically going to get a good mix of them, okay? Next, we talked about omega-3 and omega-6. You want to try to get that ratio as close to how we used to eat, which was a 1-to-1. Which means you may be eating some fish, you may be eating some fish oils, and definitely, if you can afford it, work on getting grass-fed, grass-finished cows because those are going to give you the right mix of omega-3 to omega-6. Okay, we talked a little bit about MCT oil, medium-chain triglyceride oil, that just being an oil that your body can use for energy very quickly. So it's going to produce the ketones, and ketones are an energy source that your body can use straight away. So again, MCT oil cannot be stored in the liver or used in any other way for the body part. It has to be burned for energy. So it is a good, quick energy source and a big part of Dave Asprey's Bulletproof Coffee. And then we talked about bad fats and bad oils, and that's the hydrogenated oils. And again, making sure that your oils are not going rancid. So taking care of your food and avoiding the bad stuff is important as well with fats. But I'm a big fan of fats, Doug. I'm a big fan of fats. Okay, and then number 8 is we talked about simple carbs and sugar. Cut those as low as you can go. Make sure you're getting nutrients from the foods that you're eating, but again, as low as you can go on the simple stuff, because it's just a big surge, quick feed, gasoline on the fire kind of thing, and you don't really need that all the time. And then soluble fiber being that fiber that's going to be the slow roasting carbs that are going to go through and basically be the slow carbs, like a sweet potato, where your body's just going to take its time pulling energy from that, using it to refeed your muscles with the glycogen they need, and then providing the blood sugar that you need to just sustain yourself in a slow roast kind of style. So it's, again, stick to soluble fibers as a way of providing energy if you're not using fat as your core energy source. And then number 10 is the non-soluble fiber. And again, that's the stuff that just goes right through you and allows you to stay very, very regular. So if you're having regularity problems, look for non-soluble fiber foods, and those are going to help you maintain. And then the final one, number 11, there are no essential carbs. There are essential fats that you need. There are essential amino acids that you need. So you do need protein and fats in your diet when you're eating, but there's no absolute need for carbs. You need minerals and vitamins, but not necessarily the carbs. That said, I really do think that when you're looking at macros, you just need to think whole foods. You need to think about variety, and you need to think about balance. And so if you're feeling really good when you eat a meal, pay attention to that meal. If you're not feeling so good after you eat a meal, again, pay attention to that meal. Over time, you'll start to understand the foods that do you better and the foods that don't. And cut the foods that are bothering you. Just, cut them, because you might love the taste of that cheesecake, but the reality is if that cheesecake is made with some bad oils and it's made with some heavy in sugar, and you're just not getting the nutrients that you need from that cheesecake, it's not doing you any favors. So, have a bite full, but don't eat a big piece if that's the way you need to roll. But just realize that is not helping you reach your health and fitness goals. So I hope you got something good out of this, and we'll talk soon. If you enjoyed today's episode, would you please share it with your friends and family? Thank you. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we meet with Dr. Jason Fung and Jimmy Moore and discuss their new book, The Complete Guide to Fasting. Until then, have a happy and healthy day.